Well, thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Making Sense, where we talk about our finances, our financial institutions, the current trends, and what's on the horizon as well. We're joined today by Elizabeth and Rene from Forest Area Federal Credit Union's Fraud Prevention Committee. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, we are talking about romance scams, as well as other kinds of scams that are seeming to hit an awful lot of people right now. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, so we see fraud year round. I'm sure you see a lot of fraud year round.
Yes.
When do we typically see the most fraud?
Actually, this time of year happens to be the highest time because there are two different scams going around that are pretty prevalent for
Okay.
Valentine's Day and tax returns. So it seems to be the two biggest ones. Fraudsters know that people, probably like two-thirds of Americans, get a tax refund. So they know the money's really big right now. So that's when they like to strike.
So, and when we see these kinds of scams, like let's break down the tax scams. Are they posing as the IRS, or do they just know that we may suddenly have a little influx of money?
I think it's a combination of both. We call it imposter scams when they pretend to be like a government agency and they demand immediate payment. They have all kinds of red flags that go along with that.
Okay.
Some of them, I don't have an extensive list of red flags, but usually obscure payments. They'll ask you to pay with gift cards and just really off the wall things that
They're
you
very
wouldn't.
aggressive.
Yes, they
Okay.
use fear tactics. Yeah.
They do. And they scare the member. And a lot of times it's older folks that they're scamming, and they'll call them in the middle of the night. So they've woke them up out of their sleep so they can't think as clearly as they normally would. And tell them that they have to do this right now or they're going to jail. They use all kinds of aggressive tactics like that.
And I think I mean, scams have been around for a long time, and it feels like one of the universal things with so many of them is that high pressure. And how many times I've read on the news, the blank agency will never contact you first directly by phone in order to demand payment. That's probably one of those red flags, Elizabeth, that
Yes.
if there's this sense of urgency, slow down, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
Okay.
the biggest thing to remember too with the IRS, they already have all of your information. So when you have someone on the other end demanding personal information about you that the IRS should already know, that's a big flag too. Because they
All
already
right.
have the information.
So that's our taxes. And then these romance scams. That's awful. Okay. So what is a romance scam?
Oh boy, Renee, would you like to start with that one?
Sure. So a romance scam is they find people through social media, some of the dating sites that are out there, and they start a relationship, start out as a friendship, gain their trust, and they quickly move on the relationship,
Very
moving
fast.
it along very fast and making the member, think that, I've found someone. And
Right.
then they start asking for money, giving stories like, I've got a family member who needs an emergency surgery. I'm trying to get to the United States to see you, but I don't have the money. And so, of course, once they've gained the trust of the person, then that person is reluctant to start sending that person money. And it's very sad.
Yeah.
That is. Huh.
We've seen people empty their bank accounts in situations like this because sometimes they're so convinced that this person is real
Mhm.
that we've even had police, friends and family, other credit union people, trying to tell this person that it's not real, this person is fake, they're scamming you, and they are just so in love and convinced that this other person loves them that they'll give everything that they have.
Yeah.
So
Leading with hope, and really we need to be leading more maybe with our head, or again, slow things down, right? Same common denominator there. So we see a lot of romance scams around Valentine's Day. Tax season happens to fall at the same time, so we see scams related with that. So we really need to be paying close attention, especially this time of year. It sounds like.
Yes. Christmas time also.
Yeah.
We see the fraud go up more around the holidays. People are using their cards more. They're more apt to shop online and at sites that they don't necessarily know are secure. There is a lot of what we call clickbait,
Yeah.
things that seem just to be too good to be true online, and they capture your attention. You click on it, and before you know it, it's a scam. And
Mhm.
you've already entered your card information or given them your bank account information. So we just really like people to take a moment, do your research. If you find something online that you are interested in, that you go out of that site and go do your own research and see if that's a legitimate company, and then make your choice from there.
And I do want to lead off of that too, Renee, because I want to say that I've actually fallen for that scam before, the too good to be true. And what I want to emphasize in this point is that a lot of people are too embarrassed to admit it. They think, oh, people are going to think I'm stupid or dumb and or gullible. And so they don't talk about being scammed. They don't share it. And the best way to prevent scams and stop scams is to share. You could be helping someone with your story, and you could be, even if it's a romance scam, you could help someone that's currently going through it. So I encourage people to talk about their stories if they've been scammed, even if it's embarrassing, because what we have to remember are these scammers are very sophisticated sometimes. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Beekeeper, but it gets that elaborate. They have these huge setups with
They do.
unlimited resources, and they can really, really make it look so believable and real. So if it's ever happened to you, don't be afraid to share.
Are we seeing, that too good to be true? You say like these scammers, this is their job, right? Like
Correct.
that's why they
Yes.
work on this all the time. And so they figure out what works. So if the situation is too good to be true, and we're all starting to realize that, is there a thought that they may start to make it not sound too good to be true in order to make it blend if that's a red flag for us, right? Like $1 million, you just won $1 million. If somebody came and said there's $78 that do the scammers tone it down in order to make it not be so much of a red flag?
So they do, Mark. I had a member call the other day and they said, I have to send this amount of money and they're going to pay me an larger amount of money. And that scam has been around for a very long time.
Mhm.
People do think that they're actually going to get a larger sum of money if they pay a little bit of money out of pocket.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. Um, the clickbait that we were talking about is if you're on Facebook or you're on TikTok and an ad pops up. What we have to know about social media also is it's engineered for you. So if you're always looking at things that have to do with cars or
Mhm.
fishing or sports, you're
Mhm.
going to start seeing ads that are contoured to you. And so they'll start putting clickbait, things that are not necessarily true or fraud. And when you click on it and you think, oh, well, I can get this set of tools if I just pay $9.95 in shipping, I get this whole set of tools that would normally be $500.
Sure.
And unfortunately, people do fall for those scams. And then once you have given them all of your information, you're hooked and they have your information. What we also like people to do is to pay attention to their accounts frequently, going online, making sure that everything that you're seeing coming out of your account is something that you did, that the charges are legitimate. And if you see erroneous charges like $1 or $9.99, that you question those if it wasn't something that you did, because what they're doing is they've found a bank account or they've found a credit card, because they have, just like Elizabeth said, they're very technological and they have programs that run your card through, they run numbers, and until they click on something, they'll find a card, and then they'll start charging very small amounts so you're not paying attention. Once they realize that that is an actual account, that's when the larger numbers start coming out.
Yes.
This is pretty complicated, next level stuff, isn't it?
It is. You would think that it was something out of a movie, but
Right.
it's real life. It's stuff that we deal with and we see every day. So
Wow. All right. So if we get this text, or we get an email, or we get a phone call, and how do we know it's an impersonator, or how do we know it's not the? Is there any simple advice that you can give us to? How do we differentiate that?
my best advice that I can give on that is if you have any doubts, first of all, if they ask for money or information, I would immediately hang up and I would go directly to their website, like exit out of anything that you're in and go directly to their website. IRS.gov is a good place to start if you think it's the IRS, and go to where you can contact them. They'll give phone numbers and things like that off of the legitimate website. And I would contact someone there because they'll know. If you owe the IRS money and you get a hold of them, they'll get you where you need to be because I mean they want their money. But most of the time it's not legitimate. So I advise people to hang up and call back, but don't ever hit redial because a lot of times the scammers can what we call spoof that number. It looks like it's the IRS calling by caller ID, but it's an app that you can purchase to make your number look legitimate when it's really not.
Yeah,
So-
it has become common. I do want to point out if anybody has any experiences with scams or any advice, you can comment below. We'll share them and run them by our experts. So we've got your romance, we've got your tax ones, but we were also talking about an Amazon one that seems to be going around.
Yes. So it's been going around for a bit now. I think Elizabeth has had a phone call or a text from it. I've had a few phone calls. And what happens is they send you a text message. They send you, they call you on the phone and say, this is Amazon, and we just wanted to let you know that your order has been shipped and that your bank account is being debited X amount of dollars. And then it goes on to say, if this isn't you, either click the link provided or call this number and we'll put you in touch with your bank to dispute it. Please do not click the link and please do not call the number. If you have questions, either hang up, do not click on any links, go to your Amazon account and verify
Your financial institution.
or call your financial institution. We have a lot of members that are starting to get these scams and they call us and say, I just want to check and see if anything's happened to my account. And that is the right thing to do, is to call us first and or check your Amazon account. Or, you know, there are other scams out there. Amazon is one that comes to mind because Amazon is almost a household name now.
Yeah.
And it's not out of the ordinary for us to get a notification on our phone that our package is on the way or something. Some of those are legit. But again, it sounds like slow down. Go back to the original source to verify whether this is legitimate or not before you do anything with that. Do these complicated scam artists, do they ever get caught?
Very rarely do they ever get caught. If you go on, there's actually a website that's run by the FBI. It's called ic3.gov. And they have a lot of statistics on there as well as resources. But most of the time, the scammers don't get caught because they have such sophisticated technology that they hide behind this screen of anonymous, technology. And you just can't ever really find them. So most of the time they don't get caught. Most of the time your money is not recovered.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you actually get your money recovered. So,
Ooh,
and even worse, even if you don't lose money, we all have heard of this deep dark web. Sometimes your information is a lot more valuable than money. So if
Right.
your information is compromised, they will put it for sale on the dark web, and that can sometimes be a lot more damaging than financial loss. So we have to be really careful on clicking on anything.
wow. Um, how, how do we talk to our parents about this? Our elder parent. My mom clicks on everything. She's not watching now, I don't think, but I love mom. But she's a clicker and an overshare, and her radar as to what is legitimate and what is not is not solid. She's a very trusting person. How do
Yes.
we have this conversation with anyone that we might be concerned about as being a happy clicker or oversharer?
It's a very difficult conversation because my mother is was the same, and they grew up in a time where they trusted everyone, and
Yes.
they have a hard time believing that people would do the things that we're seeing now. So it's just, I would say, a continuous conversation and education, and alerting them, showing them examples of fraud and what can actually happen and be done.
That's where I really like that, share your story to stop a
Oh,
scam, because if they're, clicking and they're seeing all these things and look at this deal or look at this person, they're really interested in me. And if you can bring up examples and show them, of people who have gone through the same thing and just say, I know when it was, there was a time where it was like this, where people were very trusting and you could believe what they say, but it's just not like that anymore. Yeah, you really have to share personal, private things that other people have gone through to kind of get it through to them that this is the reality we live in now.
and I imagine that's hard
Hmm.
to step forward and share this. This happened to me. Not I did this, but this happened to me. It's hard to share that when chances are the money's gone. We're all pretty familiar that not very many people get this money back. So I've
Right.
lost the money. So why go to the police? Why go to my bank? Why share what I'm embarrassed about? If it's not going to lead to anything, I'll just suffer in silence, right? So that makes it hard, but that's so important, right?
It is for awareness
Absolutely.
so that it can help the next person,
Yeah.
hopefully not fall into that same scam.
When do we talk to our financial institutions in this process? If we think we've clicked on something or done something, is it important that we call our bank or our credit union and let them know
Immediately.
immediately? You like
Yes, immediately.
you cannot not do it too soon. Is that it?
Yeah. And Renee is the expert on that because she's in the call center and she sees a lot of people. That's the first contact point is the call center. And it's very important because there's a lot of things that we can do to freeze your account and stop things from happening.
Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely important to do right away to let your financial institution know so they can take preventive measures.
These scammers, they work so hard at gaining your trust
Mhm.
and making you comfortable with them that you
Mhm.
want to divulge your information, and then something clicks and they think maybe this isn't
Right.
isn't accurate, and then they call us and they say, I think I just did something that I wasn't supposed to. And so we walk them through it and we help them secure, everything that needs to be secured and go from there.
Stop the bleeding.
Yes.
And then one of the things that we often talk about making here on Making Sense um, is we don't have to be experts in things because our financial institutions have experts in things. And don't be afraid. Don't think that it's a stupid question you're asking or, well, they don't really care about that. If somebody is even hinting or just thinking a little bit, maybe I was a scam, do they call? What I'm trying to get you to say is don't feel like your
There's
situation isn't
no,
worthy of a
there are
call.
no dumb questions.
Okay.
We want to help. That's why we're here. And there is a lot of fraud out there in so many different forms that we've seen it. So we want to help that person.
Right. And I do want to add on that. We have
Yeah.
seen situations where it's not fraud, and that's okay. You know, we don't mind walking through it with that member, figuring things out, and oh, you know what? It was something that I did. I'm sorry. And we're okay with that. It's fine that you've called us and, you know, we've walked through this. We don't see it as a waste of time. We see it as we're here for you and we're glad it wasn't fraud. So don't be afraid to call.
Better safe than sorry.
Yes.
Absolutely. Um, and I imagine because of the prevalence of these frauds, that legitimate organizations and legitimate requests, people making legitimate, you really do owe the IRS, or you really didn't pay that parking ticket, right? Those organizations probably are also used to getting phone calls. They're never going to demand payment within 24 hours because they all know that we're being encouraged to slow down, to verify, to do all of those things. So probably a lot of those organizations that are legitimate have probably adjusted their behaviors and their expectations because they know we should do this homework, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Super helpful. What else do we need to know about scams now that it's February and we're trying to find dates for Valentine's Day and we can't wait to get that big tax return and have everything go our way? What else do we need to be aware of?
I would say first thing, if you find someone on the internet or social media or however you find them, uh, you know, the red flags to look for are people who really want to hurry up in a relationship and they quickly fall in love with you, talk about marriage very fast. They usually have crazy kind of jobs where they're either like military or oil field or overseas doctors. So that way they're hard to get a hold of. You can only call or text during certain times. And it's also really good for them as far as a way where they can ask for money because, oh, I'm overseas and you know I have this emergency where I need you to send me money. So some of those red flags I would say immediately as soon as they start asking for money, it's not legitimate. So just, you know, cut them off.
Slow down.
Yep.
And with the tax money coming in, you know, people are going to want to do shopping. They're going to want to look for things. We just ask that they make sure that the sites that they're on are secure, that they're really doing their research before they give anyone their information, making sure that it's a legitimate site, legitimate company.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. Slow down, do your research, go back to the sources, meet somebody in your hometown that's not a doctor practicing overseas, right? That's a good idea for your Valentine's Day, and talk to your financial institution if you have questions or concerns,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And if you don't feel embarrassed if you have fallen for this, instead speak up, share your story.
Yes,
And
I
watch out
really
for
like
our
to encourage
elderly.
that because even me in my position, I'm in the fraud department and then I fell for a scam. So I'm here to say it can happen to anyone. I
Anyone.
thought I did my research on this too good to be true deal. I had to have these camping chairs and it turned out to be toothbrushes from China and weeks of trying to get my money back, stuff like that. It has happened to me. So please don't be embarrassed. Share your story. Let people know. The more people know, the less people will fall for it.
Yeah, you may not save your money, but may save the next victim, right?
Right.
Yes.
And watch out for our elderly population.
Yes, yes. Have
Mhm.
that conversation with your loved ones, and we all need to keep our radars up. It sounds like. Renee, Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time tonight. Great information. I feel a little bit safer about all of this, and we look forward to catching up to you on a future Making Sense.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Mark.
thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Good
Bye
night.
bye.